we were backed by YC in January last year, so January 2022, and then we raised around from Sequoia at the end of last year, so November. Yeah, I mean that was good. I think these are like some of the best investors in the world, right? So it's amazing to have them on your side. But the thing that was really validating is validation from customers.
Thank you for being here today, Shivam, on the Real Voice podcast. You have been, you created Redbrick AI. You're one of the co-founders. And, you help healthcare companies build AI. And it's such an exciting space to be in. So tell me more about how you got started and talk to me about Redbrick.
Yeah. So I guess first I'll explain what exactly we do right now, where we're going, and then how we got here, I guess.
Perfect.
So, to lay some context, over the last 5 years, the use of artificial intelligence in clinical environments has skyrocketed. And I'll explain why. Healthcare happens to be a really good use case for artificial intelligence. And as we all probably see in the news with ChatGPT, the advancements in computation and deep learning have also been, exponential. So actually, let me rewind a bit. So these modern artificial intelligence algorithms, they're called deep learning. They're data-hungry algorithms that learn from data. And about 30% of all the data that gets created in the world comes from the healthcare industry. So for data-hungry algorithms, that's a really good use case. There's a lot of data being created in healthcare. Plus, there's an overworked, workforce in healthcare.
Right.
So for this reason, over the last few years, a lot of companies have been deploying artificial intelligence in clinical environments to somehow improve the workflow of clinicians. So for example, tools are being used to automatically detect breast cancer in mammographies or to detect chest nodules in chest CT scans. And, the challenge with this, though, is building artificial intelligence in these clinical environments is really difficult. And it poses a lot of unique challenges that don't exist outside of healthcare. So that's where, we saw an opportunity to really enable this growth by building software to help these companies build artificial intelligence. Now, exactly what we do is the first thing a company needs to do if they set out to, let's say, build an AI system to detect breast cancer in a mammography is they'll collect thousands of mammography scans from a hospital. Then they need to go hire clinicians to actually annotate where the pathology is in the scan. And they do that thousands of times. And then you use that data to train your algorithms, right? Yeah. So this is about 70% of what an AI team does. 70% of your resources go into preparation of the training data. So our platform, Redbrick, we help companies do that 60% faster, basically helping them get to market with their algorithms quicker. Yeah.
Okay. And what you said there were very specific, unique challenges in this space. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah. So the basic technology being used in healthcare, AI in healthcare, is the same that's being used in other fields, deep learning algorithms. And they're trained essentially in the same way. But a lot of the unique challenges come from the nature of the healthcare market. One, the nature of medical data, it's very unique, right? Medical images are really complex. They're not like standard RGB images. So for example, a CT scan is actually a three-dimensional image. It's a three-dimensional image where each voxel, which is a three-dimensional pixel, has specific physical characteristics, like it means things, not just an RGB value, right? And along with each three-dimensional image, you store a lot of metadata about patients, for example. So just the, data itself is very unique. That poses a lot of challenges in, building tools with that data. Then the second is healthcare is obviously a regulated environment, right? So you can't just build anything and deploy it in a hospital. Regulatory bodies like the FDA in the US and CE in Europe, they have purview over, the marketing and sales of software medical devices. So there's the whole regulatory challenge to deal with. And then finally, building artificial intelligence in healthcare requires domain expertise, meaning healthcare domain expertise throughout the process, right from data acquisition to training the model. Now, doctors don't traditionally have experience in building artificial intelligence, right? And AI engineers don't have experience in medicine. So yeah, these are like some of the unique challenges that, are present. And for example, Redbrick, one of the things we do is we try and make the process expert-driven from the start. So build really good collaboration tools so that radiologists can inform the data preparation and training process right from the get-go.
That sounds so cool. Just being able to bridge the gap between clinicians and the medical experts, and the software engineers, and so tell me a little bit more about the clinicians involved in the annotating of the images. I mean, it sounds like a huge task, and it is relying a lot on the human eye to obviously train the technology and the AI. So how does it, one, budget for human error? Is that a concern even? And how do you get the clinicians on board for this? How do you know which people are the right people to work with you?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of qualitative and quantitative things that you can do. So to answer the second question first, how do you get clinicians involved with this and so on and so forth? So actually, in radiology, which is the practice of medicine where you use medical imagery to perform diagnosis or some sort of intervention, right? So that's radiology. So radiology has the most advancements in artificial intelligence out of all of the healthcare subdomains. Now, radiologists are actually very open to the use of artificial intelligence in their workflows because there's a huge shortage of radiologists in the workforce. They're incredibly overworked. So there's just more to do than they're able to do.
And they're more keen to get it done because it helps them in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the AI tools that are being built right now aren't to replace radiologists. They're really productivity enhancements, right?
Got it.
So radiologists are actually really welcoming to these tools, which has been, really nice. And therefore, they're very keen to participate in, the activities required to prepare these models, right? And there's no getting around this annotation process, this manual annotation process where a human is, preparing the data set so the model can learn from that. So this process is called supervised learning, right? So any supervised learning algorithm requires this. So usually companies will partner with hospitals or some sort of clinic where, they will sell their AI algorithm to them, and in return, they'll have, let's say, the clinicians participate in the annotation process. So there are commercial agreements as well. So, radiologists aren't doing it for free, obviously.
Right.
And that's another one of these challenges. Like building an AI system for the US healthcare market, like I mentioned, requires approval from the FDA. Now, the FDA will, depending on the use case, require you to use US board certified radiologists for the preparation of data, for the validation of the models. And radiologists in the US are really expensive. So, the hourly rate for a radiologist could be anywhere from $100 per hour to $400 an hour. Now, annotating a single scan can take multiple hours, and you need thousands of scans to build an AI model. So, you could do the math on how much money you have to spend, right? So any saving on time on this is incredibly valuable. Yeah, that's the answer to the second question. What was the first one?
The first one was, I think you answered both,
okay.
Actually. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Also, that's okay. So you're only working right now with hospitals in the States, or are you also thinking about working with hospitals in India?
So we primarily operate in US and Europe.
Okay.
That's just where the technology is advanced most. So India, there's not much as much happening in India as there is in US and Europe. I think India has a lot of other problems to solve before you get to using artificial intelligence in the hospitals. for example, Indian hospitals' IT infrastructure would need to upgrade before you could even deploy an AI system within it, right? So yeah, our primary focus is within US and Europe.
I find that so interesting, given that like we're known for medical tourism.
Yeah.
You know, but like someday, right?
Yeah, no, someday. And you know, if we go back to like why the use of artificial intelligence in healthcare is exciting and it's going to be so amazing, is one of the really great use cases is it can act as a first line of defense in understaffed areas like rural India, right? So for example, there's a whole class of AI algorithms called triaging algorithms. So basically what they do is, let's say you have 100 cases of a CT scan of the brain, right? And they might or might not have stroke. Like these patients might or might not be suffering from a stroke. So what a triaging algorithm can do is rank all of them between 0 and 100. And it'll say, hey, if my score is below 60, I'm like 100% certain this patient doesn't have a stroke, right? So you can basically, from a data set of 100 images, remove 60% and only have a radiologist look at 40%. So that's like acting as a first line of defense in an understaffed area. So you can have a few radiologists in an urban center and have the rural areas around that supported by a certain triaging algorithm like this, where, it does a lot of the manual work for the radiologist and just has the radiologist work on the high risk cases. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's incredible. And, thank you for explaining how it works, and especially to someone who doesn't really know much about tech. It's great to just like munch on and wrap my head around. You started Redbrick how many years ago?
So we launched this product in healthcare at the end of 2021. But really, my journey, and I guess my co-founder's journey as founders, began in 2020.
Right.
So right after we graduated from the University of Michigan. So both of us actually, I guess I'll rewind back to how we met and started Redbrick. So we both studied aerospace engineering at the University of Michigan, and we met, basically first week of classes. So SpaceX, Elon Musk had just announced they're going to host a Hyperloop pod competition, design competition, where, there's this revolutionary fifth mode of transportation, called Hyperloop, and I explained what that is. And they're challenging any engineering design team around the world to submit a design proposal, and they'll select about 20 teams to actually build prototypes and test them out at SpaceX headquarters. So we said, all right, we're prepared. Let's go do this. So we set up a team, and we participated in that competition. We were selected as one of the teams. So we built a prototype vehicle, went to SpaceX, whatever. So we had this amazing experience, and from that, we basically decided this is what we want to do for the rest of our lives. Like, we don't want to necessarily get a job. I mean, working on cool technology with your friends, I mean, that sounds like not work, right? So
that's the dream.
Yeah. So we said, okay, cool. When we graduate, let's go do this. But we didn't really have a very clear idea of what we were going to do. Mm-hmm. We just knew that we really wanted to do this. So we moved back to India in 2020. And for about 18 months, we spent a lot of time exploring different things, trying a bunch of stuff that frankly didn't really work. And through that exploration, we noticed this opportunity in healthcare of okay, so this adoption is really taking off, and these two researchers don't have good tools. So we said, okay, this is a great opportunity for us to go build something, right? And then that's where at the end of 2021, we launched Redbrick as it is.
And then went on to work with Y Combinator and get funded by Sequoia, which happened in succession quite quickly. And that must have been so validating to the work that you guys were doing at the time.
Yeah, so we were backed by YC in January last year, so January 2022, and then we raised around from Sequoia at the end of last year, so November. Yeah, I mean that did that was good. I think, these are like some of the best investors in the world, right? So it's amazing to have them on your side. But the thing that was really validating is validation from customers, to be honest. That's like, because we spent 18 months not getting that, right? We spent like a while just trying something and nobody deriving value out of it. So the real validation was seeing our customers being successful with our product, which is the thing that felt really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's that it also must have been, like you said, incredible to actually see your product being utilized and delivering the value that you were working so hard to do. And I have a feeling that this outlook of yours is the reason that you are successful, that you are, you do generate interest with investors. Because I believe they approached you.
Mm-hmm.
Which is saying a lot for a company that gets approached by, must be like thousands of companies for
the whole fundraising world is interesting. I mean, it's like nobody wants to invest in your company until someone invests in your company, and then everybody wants to invest in your company. The venture capital world is very much a momentum business. Like, people invest in momentum. They invest in like when other people have interest in a business. So that can also make it very challenging to raise money when nobody wants to invest. But also, like, I think looking back at it, and this is where we had really good advice early on, raising money is like not the end goal. It's like how people in India want to go to IIT, right? It's like IIT is not the end goal, right? It's a means to an end. And it's raising money doesn't mean anything unless you still have to build the company. You still have to build the business. So yeah, we try and operate with that in mind.
Okay. And so you did have people who, were able to mentor you and guide you before you went with YC and then got funded by Sequoia.
Yeah. So, other friends who started companies, my dad, who's very successful in the business world, friends of my dad, angel investors. So yeah, we had a good cohort of people to guide us.
And I think that is, how would you rank that in terms of, what helped your company grow? Like being able to have that cohort, that support system of mentors and people who have been in this, not in this specific business, but just people who understand how companies function.
Yeah. I mean, we have a long way to go. We still have a lot of growth to happen. But I guess the things, good mentorship is incredibly valuable. But more than good mentorship is just like you need partners in the journey, I think. So like, for example, a co-founder, a good mentor, whatever it is, you just need to do this with people because it's, so the founder of Coinbase has like a interesting saying where he's like, starting a company is like optimistically going from one disappointment to the next, right? Which is true. It's like mostly problems, right?
Right.
There's very little good stuff. It's mostly stuff that's not going well, especially at the early stage. So yeah, you need like people to support you and work together through that. So yeah, it's very valuable.
It almost sounds like, you're building a family, you're in a marriage with your co-founder and you need to face all the downs and downs together.
Yeah. Well, I'm not married, but people who are they do say you spend more time with your co-founder than your significant other. So yeah, co-founder relationships also extremely important.
And I know that you are very cognizant of that. And tell me a little about the relationship with your co-founder and how you sustain that when there are disagreements, which I'm sure there are, when there are challenges, when things are hitting the fan.
Yeah. So Derek's my co-founder. He's the CTO of the company. So we have known each other for now 8 years probably. And we knew each other for many years even before starting Redbrick, right? So I guess we had a strong relationship before going into this, and we had a strong working relationship before going into this as well with the whole Hyperloop, experience. And I think the other thing is our goals and missions and a lot of those things are aligned. I mean, they're a little bit different, but they're very much aligned. And the commitment to the company and all of those things are very aligned, which is also very important. So, but having said that, even with that strong base or foundation, there's, lots of stress on a co-founder relationship, right? Like everything is going wrong all the time. So you have to, your relationship needs to be able to withstand that. And one of the things I was telling you about that we do to deal with that is usually you just end up debating things and talking about work like all the time. So this is actually what YC told us to do is once a week, you should dedicate time to not talk about business, but to talk about, quote unquote feelings, right? How you're feeling about, it can be about related to the business, but you have a higher level conversation about, how you're feeling. And so every Thursday we do a founder powwow to discuss those things, and we make it about 5 minutes.
I love that.
Before, we can't talk about feelings anymore. But yeah, we try to push through.
I am like, what was the first call like? What was the first powwow where you get to talk about your feelings as, two co-founders? I mean, was that tough to start?
Well, usually it's like, I think both of us personally don't talk about feelings that much. So it usually starts with him or me just being like, how are you doing? And we just say, yeah, I'm good. I'm good too. And then just silence. So that's usually how it goes. But then, after you sit in the silence for a little bit, then out comes, well, this, well, that, and yeah,
so the silence,
it's not gotten easier, right? It's the same.
But the silence gives you time to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even maybe sometimes sitting in silence with somebody has a calming effect. And
right. And the other thing that the other benefit of this founder powwow actually is in day-to-day activities, like like I said, right, there's always a stress on the relationship, as there is with many relationships. But let's say something happens that makes you upset. You don't have to lash out right then and there. You can have a muted response because there's a dedicated time in the week where you can talk about these things, right? So that like makes everything muted and like very, all arguments very sensible and calm. Yeah. Because you have a dedicated time to talk about that stuff if you need to.
Yeah. And are you the kind of person that gets riled up about, has that ever happened where you feel like, okay, I need to rein it in and just hold on to this feeling and discuss it later?
No, not at all. I think I'm a little bit too much on the other extreme. Yeah.
You rationalize your emotions and and so now you've built a company with your friend. Does building something with your friend and growing something with your friend in this space, is it easier when your co-founder is your friend, do you think?
So, well, I don't know what it's like to do this without a friend. With someone who's not a friend. But if I'm to, visualize what that would be like, to me, it feels almost impossible to do it with someone you don't know really well. But at the same time, you have to enter it knowing that there's going to be strain and changes to the relationship. But I don't think it's necessarily possible to do it with someone that you don't know very well. Yeah.
Okay. And that's really interesting because so many people today choose to keep their professional and personal lives very separate. I think even in the workforce, when you work with a friend, like you said, there will be strain, right? But you're also saying that you can't fathom doing it with someone that you don't feel that closeness with.
I don't subscribe to this work and life and balance minds. I mean, obviously, rest and all of that is important.
Disclaimer.
Obviously, that's what I'm saying. But it's not like two separate things. You're building a life, right? Redbrick is what we do. That is what we're building. Like, I don't see it separate from my life. Maybe that's bad. But so there is no separation necessarily.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. Pretty happy with that.
Yeah. I completely agree. I agree with, like for me personally as well, it's hard for me to separate work from what I do, especially I think when you are passionate about what you do. It just is your life. It's not simply a part of it. Yeah. So I'd love to, get your thoughts on where you see the future of your business going. Like, what is your vision for Redbrick?
Yeah. So the vision really is, we believe in a future where artificial intelligence is commonplace in healthcare, in delivering care, and we want to play, hopefully, a significant part in making that happen, right? So right now, that's really laser focused on this really small problem of helping companies prepare training data, just because, that's how you have to build products and companies with focus. But, eventually we see us supporting companies kind of end to end. So, for example, a few of our customers are using us to get through their FDA and CE certification trials. So not only in preparation of training data, but also in the regulatory approval process. So there's like 5 or 6 things a company needs to do to build artificial intelligence in healthcare. And in the future, we want to be the de facto platform that they use start to end, right? So that really is the plan, and, to achieve the mission of making that future possible, where AI is commonplace in radiology and in healthcare.
And it doesn't seem like, or actually I should ask, does it seem like you're far away from that?
Oh, yeah, probably. Very far. This mission's kind of never ending, right? I guess that's what a good mission is. It should not have an end date to it. So, there's a long way to go for artificial intelligence to be commonplace, like it is in like other devices, like, for example, Siri on your phone, or, recommender systems on Netflix and YouTube. So artificial intelligence is absolutely commonplace in life, but in healthcare, it has a way to go, right? So, yeah, it's a never-ending mission.
And it's also one that I suppose slowly reveals itself to you as you, are in this process, because you don't know the full power of the applications as yet.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. So about 5 or 6 years ago, all the gurus who were predicting how the progress of artificial intelligence will unfold, everyone was like, okay, the first thing to go will be blue-collar jobs. It will be manufacturing, it'll be truck drivers. And then the next thing to go will be, entry-level white-collar work. And then it'll be, perhaps managerial work, and then maybe someday creative work. And, but artists will never be touched by artificial intelligence. And the exact opposite has happened. Nobody's able to predict that. So Sam Altman says this, like the founder of OpenAI. He basically lays this out that everyone thought it was going to happen left to right, but it went right to left. Where with ChatGPT and generative AI, the first thing, quote unquote, at risk, not at risk, but, the first problem being solved are creative problems, are, generating images, generating code, and blue collar jobs have not been affected really. So yeah, time will tell. We can predict how things will happen, but over a 10-15 year time frame, nobody gets it right.
Is it valid to be concerned about that whole narrative that, the AI will replace human effort and human creativity? Because it seems to me, and I know very little about this space, so please do correct me, but it seems to me that the idea is to have a very symbiotic relationship with AI. And so I think it's also like a headline thing, no? Like AI, like your robots will take your jobs.
Yeah.
And I don't know. How do you feel about that narrative? And is there any merit to it?
Right. So, I mean, I think with most things, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Again, I mean, I don't know. This is my opinion. But, I mean, I think it's a little ridiculous. The whole Terminator style, apocalypse is just not what... it's just not what's going to happen. At least in the, while... Okay, maybe 400,000 years from now, who knows, okay? But that's not where we're headed. Absolutely not. But I don't think it's fair to say that there's no concern and you cannot be aware of the potential downsides of artificial intelligence, which are in two forms. One is, I mean, there is going to be job displacement, right? I personally believe more jobs will be created than destroyed, but there'll be jobs of a different kind, as it's been for all of human history.
Right.
New technological advancements happen, certain jobs cease to exist, but more jobs open up in a new area.
Yeah.
And, we have to be responsible. We have to keep our eye on that and make sure society is not hurt in that transition. But, and the second thing is in misuse of artificial intelligence. Like any powerful tool, even artificial intelligence can be misused. Like maybe there's a huge proliferation of fake news, or, there can be so many ways artificial intelligence couldn't be misused, as is the internet, as is advancements in cybersecurity, right? So, I mean, technology is a double-edged sword, right? And we have to be careful of the potential downsides. But I'm not a fan of the alarmists who are, Terminator style, the world's going to end because of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about essentially how people are adapting to AI, coming into spaces where there's a lot of like fear mongering. And where does AlphaGo fit into this and that narrative?
So AlphaGo, for I guess the people who don't know, it's a AI algorithm built by DeepMind. So DeepMind is kind of Google's OpenAI equivalent, right? So AI research company, essentially. So actually the story of DeepMind is really interesting. Maybe I'll speak on that for 2 minutes. So AlphaGo was their like breakthrough achievement. It came out a few years ago, but essentially it's a AI system that's able to play the Chinese board game Go and was able to beat all of the professionals. And throughout history, nobody thought that would be possible. So it was kind of like a huge moment when that happened. But I actually really like the story of DeepMind. So it started off as a research team, really. And they started doing research on using AI in games. So they built, a bunch of artificial intelligence systems for various games. So Go, as well as like Dota, League of Legends, and all sorts of complex games. And if you hear the founder explaining why, it's because the games are a really good playground for evaluating intelligence, essentially, because it's a defined rule set, and there's a rubric amongst which you can like rank people, right? So you can like grade people's intelligence really effectively. That's why games are like a really good playground to develop develop artificial intelligence. So for a long time, that's all they were doing. They were working on these games. And, there's a lot of naysayers who kind of pick on, doing research, quote unquote, for the sake of research. But this is like a really good example where that turned out to, work really well. But so AlphaGo came out a few years ago where they were able to beat, the world leading Go player at Go. And then, after that, they released something called AlphaFold, which I think is probably one of the greatest achievements with artificial intelligence ever. So AlphaGo is able to predict the three-dimensional structure of proteins from a DNA sequence. So this has long been like a problem in computational biology. And the reason you want to do this is because with a three-dimensional protein structure, you're able to target drugs really effectively. If you know the 3D structure of a protein, you can say, I'm going to attack it this, and this way, right? So usually it would take a PhD student their entire PhD to sequence one DNA to one 3D protein structure. Now with AlphaFold, they're able to sequence the entire human body over Christmas. So I mean, that's the kind of like impact you can have with artificial intelligence, right?
That's incredible.
So on one hand, let's say people are worried about artificial intelligence taking away jobs, right? And sure, AI is like extremely good at very specific tasks, right? Like you can have a computer vision model extremely good at detecting cats and dogs, but I mean, that thing's not going to know how to drive a car, right? It's not general intelligence. And on the other hand, I mean, look at like the wonderful things artificial intelligence is doing. Now, with this entire database of 3D protein structures, I mean, you can literally half the time for clinical trials, taking drugs to market. If you can get drugs to market faster, I mean, there's obviously clear benefits to that, right? So I think there's a lot of fear-mongering in the media because there's maybe a lack of understanding of what artificial intelligence really is. It's really, put simply, a class of algorithms that are good at detecting patterns at a very narrow set of problems, right? I mean, that's essentially what it is. Like, if you guys know what a linear regression is, where let's say you have 1 point here, 1 point here, and you predict where the next point is, that's what all deep learning models do. They're just predictive based on the data they've seen. So I think when people understand that, they know that, okay, this general intelligence Terminator style thing is like not in the future. These algorithms are not that. And I think people need to keep their eye open to the really amazing impact artificial intelligence can have, for example, with AlphaFold and with all these wonderful things happening in radiology, for example. Like, I'll give you a specific example in radiology as well. So, I mean, there's so many, but, these researchers at MIT and actually a lot of commercial teams as well, what they do is they take, women who currently have breast cancer, and they'll see their mammography scans. And they'll rewind 4 years in the past when that woman did not have have breast cancer. They will train an AI algorithm on these scans where the woman did not have breast cancer, and they'll tell the AI that this person will develop cancer in 4 years in advance, 4 years later, right? So this way you're able to somehow give artificial intelligence seemingly magical powers to predict 4 years in the future this woman's going to get breast cancer. And to a radiologist, the scan looks normal, right? And I mean, obviously, isn't it? I mean, that's wonderful, right? Nobody's going to say that's bad. So, I wish people would be more open to like the good that's going to happen, and have a not to overlook the job displacements or the potential bad that can happen, but just maybe have a little more positive outlook. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you were right in saying that it stems from maybe a lack of clarity in this space. And to that, thought, what reading would you recommend to people who want to know more, but maybe aren't as well-versed or exposed to the AI space?
I mean, to start with, there's well, it depends. If you want kind of the impact of artificial intelligence, how it's being used, the markets, or if you want to learn like the technical stuff, of how it works, which is basically math. I mean, I personally find both.
The not math
right.
one.
The not math one. Yeah, fair enough. So there's a whole bunch of blogs and articles and podcasts that you can listen to. So I mean, you listen to any of the leaders of these AI organizations speak, for example, OpenAI, DeepMind, so on and so forth. And you'll just get a little window into what's happening in the future.
Yeah, and what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
The breast cancer thing is quite incredible. I think that's something that a lot of people are very interested and intrigued by. Like, how do we reverse engineer? What can they see that the human eye can't detect? And essentially, at the end of the day, we are training it to work for us, not against us.
Yeah.
So, like you said, a lot of the jobs might it's not. I don't even want to use the word displacement because it sounds more just like job evolution.
Evolution. That's probably a better word.
Right? Yeah. And I have to ask, who inspires you? And I ask this because you are a particularly motivated individual, not just in, I'm going to segregate, not just in your professional life, but in your personal life, to which you said it all is one to you. And now, obviously, that outlook helps, right? But who inspires you? Who do you look up to?
I mean, I think I look up to a lot of people and I'm inspired by a lot of people. Okay, so to put it, I can't list all the people that inspire me because there's too
It'll
many.
be like, that's episode number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But broadly speaking, people who live life with passion and excellence really inspire me. From entrepreneurs to musicians to athletes, like I really am inspired by when someone is very passionate about their craft and is really good at it. And that's what, I mean, that motivates me to do the same, basically.
People who give it everything.
Yeah, right. And there's so many examples of that. I mean, from, the great entrepreneurs of our age, whatever, Elon Musk, even though for some reason, he's controversial now, but to musicians, to bands like Pink Floyd, like I derive immense amounts of inspiration from them.
So Elon Musk has become controversial, but it's almost impossible to deny what his visions have been and how he's actually managed to achieve that and more. And also you did mention that you were part of the SpaceX challenge. Mm-hmm. And, I'd love to hear more about that experience and what you think about Elon Musk.
Yeah. So Elon Musk definitely is one of those individuals that really inspires me and has for many years before he became so famous.
A persona.
Yeah. He's like really made a name for himself for the last 2-3 years. But, it really goes back to my original passion is aerospace engineering. Like since as far back as I can remember, I wanted to be an aerospace engineer. Like when I was yay big, like really young. So naturally, I was very drawn to what SpaceX was doing, right? And basically, the aerospace engineering departments at any university in the US were basically fanboys for Elon Musk and SpaceX, right? And, fair enough, what SpaceX has accomplished is just mind-blowing.
It's worth fan clubbing.
Yeah, it is ridiculous, the thing that they've been able to accomplish. And if you look at, the early days of SpaceX and just me drawing inspiration from another entrepreneur, I mean, the kind of adversity and challenge and, ambition of Elon Musk is just, it really is amazing. Like back to, so SpaceX, before SpaceX, he was one of the founders of PayPal. And then he made a bunch of money selling PayPal. And basically over the next few years, started Tesla and SpaceX together and invested basically all his money into those two companies. I mean, he was rich. He could have gone, as most people do, he could have become a venture capitalist and just not deal with, the pain he had to deal with.
He could have chilled.
He could have chilled, right? I mean, and fair enough. But no, he started these two businesses. And I'm just thinking okay, so let's say you made a bunch of money and you invested it into Tesla and SpaceX. Now, the first 3 rocket launches of SpaceX failed. I mean, the rockets blew up, right? And I'm thinking, they had one more chance, the 4th rocket launch, where he was able to take his remaining amount of his money just at another shot of success. And I know people take shots at him and some people even call him lucky, but I'm like, put yourself in his shoes. Like that, what a daring thing to do, right? To bet everything after making it, bet everything on this one final rocket launch. And it succeeded. And then obviously, everything is history. So anyways, I was following Elon Musk back in university and incredibly inspired by everything SpaceX was doing. So naturally, when SpaceX announced the Hyperloop competition, we were like, yes, that's what we're going to do. And that was a really amazing experience. We got to see him speak, at Hawthorne, California. And, after that, he's become another beast. Like, he's grown to another level. But, I still draw a lot of inspiration from the magnitude of his ambition, the commitment to seeing it through. Because also keep in mind, like, he's been doing this for decades. He's been chasing the same dream for decades. And the other thing that's incredibly impressive about Elon Musk is he's been incredibly consistent for decades. If you go back to the founding date of Tesla, it's the same mission, it's the same plan. If people ask about it right now, it's the same mission, same plan with SpaceX and Tesla. Like, that's pretty incredible. Most startups nowadays change their mission every 5 months. Like,
really?
Yeah, because that's what it is. Like, you are wandering in the desert looking for what's going to work, right? So it's very impressive and inspiring to see that kind of commitment to a single mission over decades. So I think people overlook all of that in his criticism. And I draw a lot of inspiration from him.
Yeah, I can see why. The consistency in the face of adversity and criticism is admirable.
Yeah.
100%. And I think so. Would you want to go to space?
Yeah, I would definitely want to go to space.
Yeah.
I'd go to space the first shot I got. Yeah. But most of people going to space are doing high altitude flights, essentially. And, other people are doing going to low Earth orbit, which is not that far up. You kind of can see Earth's curvature, but that's where the International Space Station is. The real cool thing would be going to to the moon or something, where you could see Earth as like a little globe. That would be wonderful. But that's probably going to take a while.
And so that's the dream, to be able to go there. Okay. And you said when you were talking about Elon Musk earlier, is that something that inspired you as well was a certain level of, like a risk appetite, an appetite for risk. And you as a person, do you have that? Or do you feel like you've had to develop that in this space? Where does risk kind of function in your...
So I actually think personally I am fairly risk averse. And I was actually talking to someone the other day about the risk involved with starting a company. I think in 2023, it's actually not that risky, Well, obviously, it really depends on personal circumstance. Absolutely. So I can't speak to all cases. But there's lots of opportunity right now. All you basically have to do is commit 18 months of your life to trying to make something work, right? And then you can get seed funding, you can get backed by angel investors, you might have revenue traction, and you'll be able to sustain from there, right? On that topic, if you are somebody who wants to start a company, I actually think it's more risky to not start a company than it is to start, because opportunity cost, you're going to miss out on the opportunity of actually living that future. But anyways, I think I'm fairly risk averse. And, I actually think that's the way a lot of people in India operate. If you look at a lot of the way technology development happens in the US, it's a lot more risk-taking and a little more daring in some ways, which I think I try and learn from. Because obviously you can't play things too safe as well. You have to be daring and you have to be willing to take appropriate risk. But, it's not risk like whatever, we'll just do it, who cares, right? It's like Alex Honnold. Do you know who Alex Honnold is? He's the guy who free soloed El Capitan.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, free solo with no rope.
There was a documentary about his journey.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So he describes risk, right? Where obviously the thing that he's doing is incredibly risky. It's thousands of feet. It's without a rope. It's a vertical wall. But he's like, it's risky, but I'm not going in there planning to die. I have a plan to succeed. I have a plan to survive. So risk doesn't mean you don't have a plan to succeed or the desire to succeed, right? I think there's that caveat.
I really like that.
Yeah.
You're still prepared.
Yeah, you have to be, he's prepared, and like, you're extremely prepared, and your plan is to succeed. But obviously there is risk.
He had a back injury as well right before he started training to do the free solo.
I don't know if it was a back injury or if it was a leg injury, but yeah, he had some injury.
He had an injury, yeah, and that was, I think that's what made his story inspiring as well.
Alex Honnold's another beast.
Yeah. So on the subject of being prepared to take risks, what are some of the things that you feel that you did to be prepared, to quote unquote risk starting a company, putting yourself out there?
Right. So, I mean, I guess my mindset was actually a little bit different. I genuinely saw it as much, much more risky to not try and to not keep trying, because I think from introspection came, the desire to do this at like the future I want and what I want my life to be. And any time I spent not doing exactly that felt like a waste of time. And opportunity cost is obviously, it's risky. It's not, you can't waste opportunity. So I actually did not see it as much of a risk. Now, the reason why I guess I think that way is because I'm very fortunate. I get to think that way. Absolutely. I think from, my parents and my upbringing, I have a lot of backing, and also been given a lot of perspective to, to let's say, follow my passions, right? But having said that, I still do believe, even for a lot of people in today's world, there's a lot of opportunity where they can follow their, passions and do not have to do the standard, route. I think it is possible. And obviously I can't speak to other people's life circumstance, but it might be good to have a mindset that gives you more power and, perhaps try and have that same perspective and understand that, there might not be as much risk in this as you think. It might be just 18 months of trying and 18 months of, let's say, adversity, and it doesn't work out. Okay, you go get a job with, a whole bunch of rich experience, right? So I think starting a business and trying to start a company 15, 20 years ago was far more risky than it is now. Absolutely. But having said that, I mean, everyone's personal, life is unique to themselves. So I can't speak to that, obviously.
Yeah. No, but I really like that perspective where it's not enough to look at risk in a silo. We need to look at risk in relation to the opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. I think also maybe in some way to kind of highlight the successes and then say, oh, I really risked it all. But perhaps what you did was seize an opportunity. And So what is Redbrick's mission? And do you think it's going to be the same 10 years down the line?
So, I mean, going back to it, right? Redbrick's mission is to help accelerate the adoption of artificial intelligence in healthcare. That's what the mission is. 10 years from now, I don't know. I honestly we can't predict that far ahead. So, it might change, but I think this broad mission is a never-ending journey. So I think we'll be somewhere in the same realm, but I'm not sure. 10 years is a long time, especially in startup world. 5 days is a long time.
Fair enough. And what do you think separates Redbrick AI from other similar companies and startups in the space?
Yeah. So I think, one of my answer is going to be, it truly is what separates any successful startup from a large company. So yeah, any startup that's able to beat a large company doesn't do it because they have more resources or, there are more people or better people or, Google is well equipped to solve any problem in the world, resourced. Simply put, it's two things. One is focus and the other one is the amount you care, right? A large company is not going to be able to focus on the problem as much as you can, right? A large company, let's say an enterprise like Google, Microsoft, is not going to be able to focus on the pains of developing AI in radiology the way we can focus on it, which is why I go back to we have such a narrow problem we're solving at the start, because focus is so key in becoming best at something. You can't be best at everything, right? You become best at one thing, and then you become best at the next thing, and you grow from there. So focus is absolutely key. And then you pair focus with care, right? Like I said, Google, any large company, maybe it's a larger startup as well, they're going to be better resource than you. They're going to have so much more money than you, right? Now, how you can beat that is by caring more, caring about the customer more, caring about the quality more, caring about your support times more, just caring more, right? So with focus and care, that's how like a smaller company beats a larger one. And that's what we try and live by at Redbrick as well. So really strongly care about end customer, care about the excellence of our products, like truly try and build something that people love and that is world-class, and eliminate distraction. So not go work on a bunch of random things. We have our mission, we have our focus, and we're going to execute really well on that. So, yeah.
I really like that. And do you think that as Redbrick grows, is that a concern that focus will shift or, grow larger and not be able to be as nuanced as you are choosing to have it now?
I mean, that's kind of the definition of growth, right? Because what is scale? Scale is doing many things. What is doing many things? It's not focusing on one thing, right? So, yeah, I mean, that definitely will be a problem, but that's a problem for another day.
And it's a good problem.
It's a good problem. That means you're growing, right? So
yeah,
it's a good problem. And some companies are able to do it extremely well. They're able to maintain that, the startup culture and vibe even at scale. For example, Brian Chesky, the founder of Airbnb, I mean, I think they have done such a phenomenal job at this, and he speaks about it incredibly well as well. So maintaining, small company agility, focus, and care at scale, I mean, that in itself is a moat. So actually, when you go pitch investors, they always ask you, like, what's your moat? What is the thing that you had that nobody will be able to replicate? And I've always found that a difficult question because, I mean, if Google, tried, they could do anything. Like, if they pivoted their resources into building any company, they'd be successful in it. So the moat that you have is care and focus and executional excellence. That is the moat.
And what happens after you're the best? Are you, interested? Are you planning an exit? Like a lot of startups today, that they started and they already know what their exit plan is going to be. And I find that very interesting.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get your take on that.
So, I mean, we're not very prescriptive as to what we want the future to be. Because, I mean, in some ways, I think that's impossible to do. Our focus is in building a great company, right? We want to build a great product. We want to add lots of value to our customers. And that's the focus. Now, there's many possible successful outcomes, but we are doing this to build a large, enduring company, right? We want to build an amazing large business that employs a lot of people and, But having said that, there's, lots of possible successful outcomes, right? And we're not going to neglect all of them. There's certainly exits and acquisitions that happen that are incredibly valuable for the entire ecosystem. But no, we don't necessarily have any plan for a certain end outcome. We're just focused on what we're doing right now.
And it seems to be working for you because you've already had a successful start. If this is just the beginning, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So, and I think going back to the first 18 months where we were trying to, make progress. I think that the change that went from that to us having something that is working was focus, which is why, we really believe in that strongly, was, identifying who our customer is, focusing the product around them, and then building world-class service, because you only have to focus on such a narrow set of problems.
Yeah. And that learning that happened over the 18 months, the learning that not even just the 18 months, but the years before that led you to believe that focus is the way forward, right? I mean, that in itself is a wonderful journey. And sitting here today, do you have any message or hopes for your future self?
Do I have any message for my future self?
Yeah.
Interesting. It's usually asked the other way. Hey, do you have any message for?
Yeah.
Do I have any? I don't know. So even for the other question, but do you have anything you would like to tell yourself in the past? My answer usually is no. So let me explain why my answer is no for going back to giving a message to yourself in the past. Is, well, one, I think there's value to naivety, especially when you're setting out to do something that's difficult. Because if you are exposed to all the problems and challenges, and I mean, starting a company is impossible. If you're aware that it's going to be impossible, you're not going to do it, right? Like they say, the best mountaineers in the world are the ones with the worst memory, right? Because it sucks trying to summit like a 25,000-foot mountain, but, they all forget how much it sucks, so I guess they go back. So similarly, I think naivety and a little bit of a beginner's mindset is useful, because otherwise you're going to look at this like massive hill to climb and be like, I'm not going to do that. So, I don't know what messages I would like to give myself either in the past or the future. Just what future I hope is, I don't know, just continue doing what we're doing and just focus on really delivering high quality products and services. That's the only desire I have. Beyond that, things will happen the way they happen.
I like your outlook on naivety.
Yeah.
And I like that you don't think about it as a negative thing, but something that actually works in your favor and allows you to be hopeful.
Yeah.
And for someone who says they are risk averse, that's something that...
However, there is being naive has its downsides also, right? Like you make a lot of mistakes and all of that, but I guess that's where all the learning is. You don't learn from doing things correctly.
And I suppose you don't ever stop making mistakes.
Yeah, no.
Either.
I think the frequency of mistakes probably reduces, hopefully. I can't imagine Microsoft making as many mistakes as like a small company.
Fair. But so you are you going to try and retain that naivety going forward? Like, do you think that sentiment has a role to play in your growth personally and, as a co-founder?
So my mindset, the mindset I try and adopt, or the mindset that I have is, let's say I have a certain desire for what the future should be. Let's say it's success of the company. I want it to get this big, this much impact, whatever. I just assume that's going to happen for no reason. Like that just is what's going to happen. So that removes all uncertainty out of the future, right? And then just operate with that certainty. Like it is going to happen. It's a little foolish, whatever. Maybe it's not how most people would like to operate. But now that you've removed all of that certainty, you can take actions with a little bit of more confidence, right? Maybe it'll take 3 or 4 years longer than you would hope, but that future is going to happen. It will materialize. You're just on the path of figuring it out, right? So, it's like trying to create certainty in an inherently uncertain environment.
And it's essentially having faith in yourself and in what your desires are.
Yeah, no, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing, so creating certainty in an uncertain environment, that's one tactic. The other thing is that can really help in an uncertain environment is just narrowing the time horizon. As you increase your time horizon, you increase the amount of uncertainty you have to deal with. right? So if you're worried about the uncertainty of your future, okay, reduce your time horizon to 1 month. Don't think about anything that's going to happen beyond 1 month. Okay, if that's too long, reduce it down to a week, a day, the next 3 hours, the next task you have at hand, right? So, yeah, like combine those two and it helps.
And believe in yourself, kids. No, Shivam, thank you so much for being here and talking about everything, from how you started to where you'd like to be and what you're currently doing. And, you know, I think like I've learned a lot personally. And yeah, it was just so great to have this chat with you.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it was fun talking about all of this. And yeah, I mean, about the mindset and strategy, those are just my personal opinions. Like, I know people have their own ways to go about life, but that's just how I go about mine. But anyways, yeah, thank you for...
Well, it's a cool way. So, yeah. And once again, congratulations with everything. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.